Have you been told you have an anxiety disorder and now you're wondering if that means you're stuck with it for life? Well, let's clear something up. This is not a life sentence. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the 3 essential steps to beating anxiety, no matter how long you've been struggling. Welcome back to the channel. Now, for the last 15 years or so, I've been helping people get control of their anxiety and develop a better relationship with their own emotional responses. And if you've been here before, you'll know I make a lot of videos on this channel about how the term anxiety disorder doesn't really mean anything we need to actually be concerned about. And also how we shouldn't be trying to beat anxiety, as anxiety isn't actually our enemy. But just for today, let's put those ideas aside, because ultimately, if we've been diagnosed with something and told that there's something wrong with us, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with the desire to in some way conquer that thing and be free of it. So just for today, I'm going to accept that you have an anxiety disorder, and I'm going to accept that your only goal right now is to no longer have that disorder. I'm not going to question whether this is a professional diagnosis or a self-diagnosis. I'm not going to point out the issue with trying to simply stop feeling anxious, and I'm just going to break down 3 simple steps you can take to get the other side of it. This is how you beat an anxiety disorder. So the term disorder is greatly misunderstood. We get told we have a disorder and we infer from that that this is something biochemical or genetic that's now a part of who we are. Like diabetes or dyslexia, we assume it's a flaw in the way we were made, and whilst we might have only just been diagnosed, this is something about us that's been present ever since we were born. Okay, yeah, that's false. Just because someone used the term disorder to describe what you're currently experiencing, that doesn't mean it's permanent. It's not a lifelong illness. It's not a hardwired defect. And it's certainly not who you are. Anxiety disorders are diagnosed based on how you think or feel now, at this time only. We're not born anxious, no matter how long you think you've felt this way. Even if you can't remember not feeling this way, our emotional responses are shaped as we learn and we grow. And in most cases, our anxiety becomes what we might refer to as disordered because of the way we think about it. It's what we might refer to as the anxiety feedback loop. You feel anxious, but because at some point you've started to perceive anxiety as an issue for you, you become anxious about being anxious. Then you start scanning your mind and body for signs of anxiety, and then perhaps unsurprisingly, you feel more anxious. That loop doesn't exist because you're broken. It exists because your mind is doing exactly what it thinks is best, keeping your focus on what it believes is most important right now, keeping your eye on the perceived threat. And the more you believe you're stuck with high anxiety forever, the more important and dangerous it starts to seem, which just keeps the loop going. Too often, just the term disorder increases our anxiety levels exponentially. It's the very concept of the ongoing struggle that keeps us locked in it. So step 1 is to understand that you're not. When we experience high anxiety, it potentially comes with a whole myriad of unpleasant physical sensations. Racing heart, tightness in the chest, stomach issues, lightheadedness, muscle tension, the list goes on. These sensations are often perceived as a malfunction. After all, if we feel them on a daily basis in the most benign and unchallenging situations, then surely there must be something wrong. It feels like our brain and our body are misfiring. But that's not true. Anxiety is a healthy response to what you perceive to be important. Fear is a healthy response to what you perceive to be threatening. And all the sensations described are a natural part of the physical reaction to fear, the stress response, aka fight or flight. So if you've been told you have a mental illness, if you've been told you have a disorder you'll have to manage for life, then of course you're going to feel anxious about that. That's not irrational, it's logical. The problem is not your response. The problem is what you've been led to believe about what that response means. In other words, your mind isn't malfunctioning, it's working perfectly well. In fact, it's doing a really good job of responding to the story you're currently telling yourself. So what happens when you change the story? The reason we fear anxiety is often because we mistake it for a genuine threat to our health or our well-being, or just as the thing that destroys our happiness on a regular basis, and is probably going to continue to do so. But the moment we stop viewing anxiety as something harmful, dangerous, or inherently disruptive, everything changes. Most of us are comfortable with the idea that anxiety isn't actually going to hurt us. We might have initially felt it to be a threat. After all, panic can very much feel like we're struggling to stay alive. But most of us at some point are able to shift our perspective on that when we understand the very simple truth that nobody ever died of panic or anxious thoughts and feelings. Anxiety is an emotion, nothing more, nothing less. And you're supposed to have emotions. It can't damage you, it's not a threat to your health, your mind, or your life. But it's when anxiety feels like a threat to our happiness that we often get stuck, because we struggle to let go of the idea that anxiety can just be dismissed when it feels so debilitating. Anxiety has become the thing that stops us in our tracks and limits our ability to live our life to some degree of normality. But this is where the final shift comes in. Anxiety itself is not debilitating. It only feels like it is because you stop in your tracks when you feel it. But if we do that, we kind of miss the point of feeling anxious. We misconstrue its purpose. Anxiety's purpose is to flag up importance. It focuses your attention. It's part of how your mind tries to help you. Yes, sometimes it gets a bit over-enthusiastic, but that doesn't mean it's trying to destroy you. When we stop in our tracks to pay attention to any sensations we associate with feeling anxious, we just create that feedback loop and hit the pause button until the anxiety has passed. If we accept that because anxiety poses no threat, it doesn't require our attention, then we find it much easier to simply continue on with our day without overly focusing our attention on how we feel. We allow anxiety to do its job, which is effectively to call us to action, only this time we channel that energy into moving us rather than stopping us. So, how do you beat an anxiety disorder? Firstly, understand that you're not broken. There's nothing inherently wrong with you that now means you can expect a life sentence of anxiety issues. Secondly, stop treating your anxiety response like it's some kind of malfunction. It's actually a completely understandable and healthy response to how you've been thinking. And finally, change the way you view anxiety itself. Nothing about your own emotions represents any kind of threat to you. What you're experiencing is part of being human. When you truly understand these three things, when you no longer fear your own emotions, you'll be amazed how quickly your responses calm down due to the very simple fact that when we no longer fear something, we no longer create that fear response. I'm going to recommend you check out this video next, which has more information about how to get back in control of your anxiety response. And whilst you're here, don't forget to sign up to my weekly mind coaching email down in the description below. Thanks for watching. I'm Tim Box. Always remember, be kind to your mind, and I'll see you next time.